everyone, my name is Sarah Shade and I am a national examiner for the United States Pony Club. I am also an A graduate and I am the mother to a 6-year-old D1. Today we're going to talk about setting grids in gymnastics, and we're going to go through some different exercises that you can do with your horses and ponies and how to teach them how to jump better and also help yourselves with your positions. Okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to walk our distances. We want to make sure that we as riders have a really good 3-foot step so that we know when we're walking that where exactly 3 foot is. Every horse and pony have a little bit different size step, but what you want to make sure of is that you know whether you're on a large horse, a small horse, a large pony, or a small pony, because you can start from there with distances and then change them ever so slightly from there. So what you can do to learn how to make a 3-foot step is take a 12-foot jump pole and walk it back and forth. You should be doing 4 steps for every jump pole because that's 3 feet per step. My jump poles are only 10 feet, but occasionally I'll even come over and just check my own stride with them to make sure that I do have my 3-foot stride. So my heel will go to the back of the pole, 3, 6, 9, and then I have a foot left over. So that is my 3-foot stride. What you want to think about when setting up your grids or gymnastics are spatial awareness of your arena. You want to make sure that you have enough room to turn from both sides to come through your grid so that the horse doesn't become one-sided, it's not always falling out to the right, he's not falling out to the left. You as a rider are going to be able to make them a lot straighter by practicing on both sides. And the horse will be able to become stronger by pushing off both hind legs evenly. You also want to think we're in a small indoor arena here, so we also need to think about spatial awareness of approaching our grid and also on landing of our grid, making sure that we have enough room to have a good stride through the turn, approaching, as well as a good stride through the landing. So in a smaller indoor here, I have our grid set up on the center line to enable the horse to keep the same distance through the turn on both sides. Okay? So first we're going to start with our grid set for your average horse that will canter a show jump horse in a 12-foot stride. So that horse is going to take a trot step of anywhere in between 4 feet and 4 feet 6 inches. In the enclosed indoor, I've set these trot poles to 4 feet. We want the horse to be just a little bit shorter to be able to sit and use their hind end a little bit more and to be able to lift through their shoulders and front end. So our trot poles are set at 4 feet, so we have 3 feet and a foot. 3 feet and a foot. And then between our last trot pole and our first jump, it's going to be twice the amount of the trot poles were. So we have 3, 6, and then 2 feet make 8. What we want to make sure is that as our horse is coming through the trot poles, we're either going to have 3 rails set like this, and then your jump, or we're only going to have 1 single rail, which would be this one, and then your jump. Because what happens is if you only set out 2 trot poles, the horse can easily come trotting through the turn, come up here, take a canter stride over the pole, and then that would mess up their distance to the first jump. Our ponies are going to be trotting a lot smaller, so they would have a smaller step coming through the trot poles. Sometimes it's down to 3 feet. A lot of times it'll be about 3.5 feet. And then again, your distance to your single fence would be double that distance. The reason it's double is as a horse comes through the trot poles, they're going to be taking 1 step in, 1 step in, and then they'll take 2 steps between the pole and the first jump. So we always start out with just our trot poles to a rail where our first jump is going to be. This enables the horse to come off the left and the right a few times. It helps make sure that the distance is correct for their striding. It helps the riders get comfortable with the exercise, and it helps the horses look and get comfortable with the exercise. Some horses, even the most seasoned horses, will come through trot poles the first time and spook at them and think that they've never seen them before. This just gives the horse to take a peek, take a look, figure out what they're doing, figure out where their feet are going before we add in any jumps. Okay? Once the horses are comfortable coming through the trot poles to the first rail, we're going to go ahead and set up our first fence. I always like the first fence to be a cross rail. It kind of helps to zero the horses in to jump the middle of the jump. So we'll set a cross rail for our first jump. And then before the horses come through, as soon as I set my cross rail, we're going to set our landing rail. This is going to make sure that the horse jumps the correct stride in here and that they have the correct distances. So what we're going to do is going to do a one stride to a one stride in this first gymnastics. So trotting in with 4-foot trot steps, 8 feet between the last rail and the cross rail. This is going to be an 18-foot one stride. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 would be 18 feet. So we're going to take our landing rail and place that down before the horse jumps the first time. Now, if you have a horse that's never done grids or gymnastics before, if this is their very first time, well, you can let them come through and just jump the cross rail before you put the landing rail down. This helps greener horses sometimes jump the first jump, understand what's going on, then you put in the next landing rail element. So then our horse is going to come off the left, the right, until the horse and the rider are both comfortable with the exercise. After they've figured out the cross rail to the landing pole, we make sure we have the right distance here. Then we're going to set our next jump. I always like to take my jump and make sure that my crown line is slightly in advance of my jump. This is going to let the horse rock back a little bit easier as they're learning through the grid, and it's going to help them lift through their front end a little bit more. So we'll set our next vertical after our horse has successfully jumped through on both reins. And then our next one stride is going to be slightly longer, so that the horse can take a nice jump over here, land with that same stride, and be able to jump the oxer. So we're going to put the next one stride at about 20 to 21 feet. Okay, and then we'll set our next landing rail. And then again, we'll let our horse come through, we'll let him jump the cross rail, take a stride, jump the vertical, take a stride, and jump the landing rail before we set the oxer. If you have a horse that's landing and rushing, trying to squirt off a little bit, I like to recommend landing and halting. Okay, that's going to get everybody a chance to think about what they're doing, to land, take a breath, because we certainly don't want them rushing through a grid. If you have a horse that's landing well balanced, then you can keep the canter and make sure that you are on the correct lead through the turn. And that'll help you get a smoother canter. It'll help you get a canter that has a bit more push, a bit more impulsion sometimes, and it'll help you with the horse's balance. After the horse is successful through here, then we will set our oxer. So when setting the last element of our gymnastics, I always like to start with a nice low oxer to be able to allow the horse to take that step in, figure out the jump, figure out their lift, figure out their balance on the landing, and then from there we can raise the oxer, widen it, and whatnot. As we raise the oxer, we might also raise the vertical and the cross rail too to make sure that the horse is coming through the entire grid, really lifting, really snapping. So what I like to do is I like to first raise the oxer, 2 or 3 holes, make it a little bit wider so that the horse has to push a little bit more. Then once the oxer's up a little higher, then we can also raise the vertical and the cross rail as it goes. Another exercise that I love to do through gymnastics or grids is have a bounce in it. So then we have our trot poles, we jump over our cross rail directly into a bounce. Again, for this normal horse stride, our bounce is going to be about 10 feet. That's going to make the horse really sit and really push. Now, if you were going to be doing a bounce out in a show jump course, your bounce would be more at 12 feet, right? But for our gymnastics, we are trotting in, and we're encouraging the horse to really sit and come back. In a show jump course with a bounce or a cross-country course, it's going to be a little bit longer because the horse is coming in with a bigger stride. They're coming in with more length to their step. So when I do that, I typically do a 10-foot bounce of 2 cross rails. Again, that really makes the horse narrow into the cross rail. And the more experienced the horse is, the higher the cross rails go, because that really directs them to a V-type place to be right in the middle. So a lot of times when we have a grid set, we're going to be doing multiple different horses in multiple different levels at different times. So what we want to do is we want to make it the easiest for us to reset as possible. So we always come back to our first jump here, our first cross rail. And then if you take all of your trot poles and you take them to the distance of this cross rail, you don't have to come back and move this first cross rail. So after we had our normal size horse come through, that say was going novice or training level, Then we're gonna go and let's take a D1 rider on a 13-2 hand pony. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to my cross rail. Instead of 8 feet, we're gonna put it more at 7. And then our trot poles will be at 3.5 feet. And then all I have to do is simply come to my cross rail, put down the landing rail, okay? A lot of times with our younger members or our lower level members, we're not sure exactly what size step their horse is going to take. So sometimes it's doing your best estimate to set and then a little bit of trial and error. So what I do is I would set this for her to come through and I'd watch her come through the first time. And if the pony was really struggling to reach or really had to go pretty fast to come through, I would wait until she make her stop before she came through again. And then I would go and adjust the distance. So I take this down to 6 feet and I would take my poles down to 3 feet. Now we have our pony and our D1 matching really well and coming through this exercise well. So what I'm going to do again is I'll set my first cross rail for her. And then this horse and rider combination are going to do a bounce next. Even though it's just a D1, she's a pretty good little rider, and I want her to really be able to feel the jump in the jumping position and be able to feel the horse coming up underneath her. And sometimes if they do a bounce, it can kind of rock them back and push them forward again. So I'm going to set for this pony, I'm going to set a 9-foot bounce. And I'll put my nice landing rail down. Again, before I set my actual jump, I'm going to let the pony come through a few times, making sure that this is correct distance for them. Sometimes with ponies, or with more green horses, or with smaller strided horses for our lower level members that are kind of shorter in the stride, you have to encourage them to go on the landing. So sometimes those horses won't want to canter over the pole or canter over their one stride. So you'll have to send them just a little bit forward. Now, this distance is working out well for our combination, so I will go ahead and set her next cross rail. And then as I'm setting the cross rail, I'm thinking about the pony's stride in my head. So if our horse had a stride, their first one stride was 18 feet. This pony, I'm probably going to set it about 15 feet and see how that goes. So I've set 15 feet to our one stride for our pony. I'm going to watch him jump through and see whether this is going to work or not. A lot of times for our lower level members, they need to make sure that the stride is exactly correct for that horse, and I'll change my grid to fit the horse rather than make the horse fit the gymnastics. Now, as we go up the levels, and we have our upper level riders that are working on the horse really sitting, especially a horse that might want to go a little bit, more at our C3 level, I would expect that horse to be able to adjust his own stride in the grid so that we can move the grid, adjust the horse to the grid, rather than adjusting the grid to the horse. Okay? So after our pony has come through here really nicely, we'll set this one stride. And then our next one stride, if this is going to be 15 feet, will probably be close to 18 feet. Just again to allow the horse to take a little bigger jump over here, land and take the same size step. So again, I'll put down my landing rail first, watch the pony come through, and adjust as necessary. Now it is difficult when you're teaching a lesson over gymnastics. A lot of times we have pony clubbers come to lessons with 4 or 5 members in a group, and you have that group for the day, and your goal is to do grids of gymnastics, and you have a 16-2 hand horse with a big step, and the same lesson as a 13-2 hand pony with a small step. So the goal is to set that grid or gymnastics for every single horse and pony. So it takes a bit longer sometimes, but I'll split my group into a couple individual groups so that the grid is set for that particular horse and rider.